Hi, I'm Jason McAteer and you're watching the Redmen TV.
He looks a lot like a Klopp type of player in that he's a quick, young-ish, 10 winger type player who works his arse off and scores goals. So,
yeah.
I mean, that should be every team should want one of those, but if you look at a Klopp system throughout the years, he's tended to have the big guy up front or the lone striker, and then the three buzzers around him who just work their arse off, get the chances, and try and get a few goals as well, which ours aren't doing at the moment, which is the downfall. He reminds me of someone who, for example, if he went to Borussia Dortmund under Klopp, you'd think that makes total sense. So if that's the style of play he's looking for, who he wants, great, because then it's a shift away from balances and struggles of power, and you get him if I get him, and bollocks. Yeah. If the manager and his team have come in and said, this guy fits what we do perfectly, he's a better fit for us than, say, Lallana, who was here before, or he's a better fit than, my team say, Coutinho. He probably isn't, I'm not convinced Klopp loves Coutinho yet. It's kind of, he's like, he's my man, there's the guy I love, get him in, and get him in my team.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right.
Why I think he's a Klopp target is the age. He's 28.
Yeah.
26.
Is he 26?
26.
Oh, okay. So it's that thing of like, he's slightly over where we normally buy them at.
Or FSG's.
Well, that's actually the thing is though, that doesn't fit Klopp's history. Klopp historically gets, younger guys in the early 20s. I'm not so sure across the board, but he's more inclined to get someone who's 20, 21, 22 and take them up to that stage. But it's encouraging that from a Liverpool perspective, particularly if it, as a January move, that's what Liverpool need. We don't need another 20-year-old kid who may or may not be a success. Look, a 26-year-old may or may not be a success, but you've got someone who's at the peak of their powers or entering the peak of their powers is a far safer bet than either side of that. 2-3 years earlier, and they're still raw, and you're not going to get consistency. 2 or 3 years later, they've got all the experience, but are they more injury prone? Do they have baggage that comes with it? Have they lost the art of pace, etc., etc.? It's not a very Liverpool signing, to be fair. No. So maybe maybe it does make it a Klopp signing.
We did it in the office yesterday. We were looking, and there was a moment when something was exporting, and I just thought, who's out there? So I looked at the European Golden Boot, and I was really disheartened, because basically because we need a proven goal scorer. So who can we go? And the mindset I had was, who's the Suarez? Suarez 3 windows ago, or 3 seasons ago, when he was scoring goals in the Dutch league. He'd played in the World Cup, he was quality, you were going to spend money on him, but we could get him. And then you go down the European Golden Boot candidates, and you're like Neymar, Messi, Ibrahimovic, Higuain's the top, and you're like, oh God, we're never getting any of these. And it wasn't until 9, who was Vardy, that you're like, there's a chance. But I don't want to sign Vardy for £25 million. And then underneath that, there was another 5 unattainable names, because they're all playing for clubs who were bigger than us in bigger leagues. And then he popped up, and I didn't even really think of it because he was so linked with Chelsea, and I don't know that much about him.
Well, it's right. We've had a list of potential targets, and we've drawn a list up. It's on the office wall of every player who's even been like whispered in association with Liverpool, and his name was nowhere near that.
Not on it.
Absolutely incredible.
I like what I was saying. You said this is the type of player we should be going for, because at the moment there's teams there's 3 or 4 teams in our league. 2 in Spain, a few in Italy, whatever, who are going to beat us to such targets. So Liverpool should be looking at the tier below, who they could bring in and hopefully have a worldie. And if the lad, and it sounds horrible to say, you call Liverpool Football Club this, but if he sees us as a stepping stone to Barcelona or Real Madrid or, God forbid, fucking Chelsea, because some players will see us as that, they don't hold us in high regard as we hold us. That isn't the worst thing in the world. If you can bring this guy in for 20 million, he has 2 years, and he thinks, you know what?
If we sign a 26-year-old, we get his 3 best years, and we sell him to Chelsea for 50 million at 29. Yeah. Fucking happy days. Do that all day long. Yeah. I genuinely don't care. As long as we're getting the best years of that player, I'm not asked. You don't want another Raheem Sterling where you're buying them at 16, 17. You don't get the best years out of them. Exactly, you're getting them up to a developmental point. Then you sell them for big money, and then they go on to dominate your league for years.
Even Luis Suarez, we bought him at that age. Was he probably 23 when he joined us? And we got good years out of him, and we trebled our value on him. Yeah. And ultimately,
Fernando Torres is the best example of it, really.
That's how you want it to go. But even if it goes in the Suarez, fashion, it's not a disaster if you get 2 years and make your money, and as long as you reinvest wisely, which we didn't, which balls us up, it's not the worst thing. So I'd hope that if Liverpool are, whoever's scouting these players or whoever it is, like you say, you're not going to sign Neymar and Messi or fucking whatever, but you might get Alex Teixeira, who's a decent player, good record, fits them all. Come over to Liverpool, show the world who you are.
These are the kind of players, and whether it ultimately happens or not is kind of by the by to some extent. But these are the kind of players that we should be targeting. And yet again, like historically, Suarez is a bit younger, Torres is a bit younger when we sign them. But these are guys who are either, I mean, he's actually, it's almost a year or two too late in some respects, because he's had two. Last season he was really good, and this season he's been absolutely out of this world for Shakhtar. But you want those players ready to whose next season is going to be their fucking season, like the season where they are just incredible. They're the players who we need to target. Just a couple of them. Because save yourself the heartache, save yourself the stress of having to watch them go through 2 years of being not that good or being badly inconsistent. Nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing wrong with having 5 of those players. Yeah. But as long as you've got 1 or 2 who are just ready to tick over. And look at the guys' goal return, it's 26 and 26 in all competitions this season.
That's the main thing. Our team, we just lack goal scorers. And our biggest goal scorer is obviously always injured. The second one, Benteke, looks like a bit of a square peg, round hole type jobby. So, who else scores that many goals? And
well, I said this week, if Firmino's not playing well at the minute for Liverpool, who's scoring goals for us? And he's not even scoring loads of goals. Joe Allen, that too. That's the Welsh Pirlo.
Those 3 behind the one have to score goals. They just have to, because who else is going to do it? The sitting 3 of Henderson, Milner, Chan, which I think looks like Klopp settled on, their industry, their energy, and they've all got a goal in them, but they're not going to be prolific. You'd be lucky to get 5, 6, 7 goals
from
a year.
Each, yeah.
So if your striker isn't scoring that many, it's the onus is on the other two to, so whether it's Coutinho or Firmino or whatever, to get the goals. And this lad, like I say, his record, and obviously it's in a poorer league, but he still scores in big games. So like you mentioned, he scored against Madrid, and I watched that game and he was good. He's a good player. So he's the exact type of signer where you think everything makes sense. Yeah. You just hope now it's out in the open. Does it put a rocket
injury that's reported as bad as all that? Or maybe he's just trying to fit in. Yeah. So I asked the question to move this along, because we've got a few topics to get through. How do we go in the space of like 4 days from having an £8 million bid for Shane Long rejected to having a £25 million bid rejected for a Brazilian, superstar?
It depends. The Shane Long stuff, whether you believe it. I remember a few years ago I said, he'd be sound for us as 4th choice. We don't need a 4th choice striker now. No. We've got 3 4th choice strikers now. Yeah. We've got Origi, Ings, and maybe Benteke now are all backup strikers for the guy who's always injured. So you need a clear player. So as good as a squad player as he could be, which he's fine, he'll do a job, he'll work his arse off, and he can score. The link made no sense. It made sense to me a few years ago. It makes no sense to me.
It made 8 million, Aubrey, made perfect sense in terms of, there you go, get him in for 6 months, see how he fares. If he scores a shitload of goals, then wow, £8 million, you've done well there. And then he's the kind of player who's entering that part of his career where he'd be fine being 4th choice. He'd probably teach Danny Ings a thing or two, because I think they've got a similar sort of mould in some respects.